Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Everyone, welcome to the show. I have a bunch of polling details to share with you. First, there was a Wisconsin poll which showed that the majority of the state's respondents are paying attention to the January 6 hearings, and 60% of them say that the committee's work is important to protect our democracy. In regard to the all-important independent voters, 57% said that they're concerned about the role that Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson played in trying to help overturn the election for Donald Trump. And 54% that said that Trump and any others who took part in the attempted coup or insurrection should be prosecuted. Now, Ron Johnson was recently asked about his part in this, and basically he said he just put the tip in, is what it amounted to. He's like, oh, I was only involved for a couple seconds. So overall, though, in these polling results, they were split along party lines, as you would expect. But I have to say, even 9% of Trump voters said that they would support the January 6th investigation. And more than half of Trump voters said they found Trump's election fraud misinformation at least somewhat concerning. So that is a big deal, not just Republicans. These are 9% of Trump voters said that they support the January 6th committee's work. And over half said they find his misinformation concerning. It may not be much, but it's better than zero. And a more recent survey that was conducted after the search and seizure of the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago showed that a majority of Americans are concerned about Trump's alleged crimes. 57% of respondents said that the investigations into Trump should continue. Only 40% said they should stop. This again was divided along party lines. 92% of Democrats agreed, yes, it should continue. 61% of independents and only 21% of Republicans want the investigations to continue forward. But again, 21% of Republicans, and like I said, independents are key here. The vast majority want this to go on, 61%. The poll also showed that Biden remains underwater in his approval rating. It's still in the low 40s. And a slight majority said that they would prefer to have Republicans in charge of Congress. It was 47% of Republicans versus 45% who said they want Democrats in charge. Now, that's different than some polling from 538 and their website and their polling. So, you know, and their polling was an aggregate of many different polls. So this one is a little bit of an outlier, but it's all still within the margin of error, whether it's this poll or 538. But what's clear is that the overturning of abortion rights has really fired up the Democratic base, and it's even brought a lot of independents and Republicans to the table in that one instance for that one specific topic. In March, Republicans were far more motivated to vote than Democratic voters. There was a 17-point gap at that time in enthusiasm between the two parties. That's now narrowed to only 2%. 68% of Republicans say they have a high level of interest in the midterm elections, and now 66% of Democrats also have a high interest level. Overall, 58% of poll respondents said that they disagree with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. But the most interesting part of the poll was when voters were asked to rank the most important issues facing the U.S. Now, a lot has been made about this new number one answer, but it's very deceiving the way that they asked this question. So the number one answer is almost always the economy. But the NBC poll revealed that the majority of Americans are now more concerned about threats to democracy. 21% ranked that as their top choice. And then the second biggest issue was cost of living at 15%. And then the third choice was jobs and economy, which came in at 14%. That was followed by immigration at 13%. Like I said, this is very deceiving because cost of living and jobs in the economy all are kind of under the umbrella of the economy. So if you add the second choice at 15% to the 14% on, jobs in the economy, it definitely is still number one. Also, I wanted to point out, they don't say, are you worried about democracy as it pertains to Trump's attempted coup or January 6th or his stealing of highly classified documents? They don't parse it out like that. So they just ask, rank these different issues. And people said democracy. Well, you could have a lot of Republicans in there as well, and even independents who are worried about democracy because they think that the last election was stolen. So don't think that this was all good news for the Democrats. And once again, the vast majority of respondents, 74%, said that the country is headed in the wrong direction. So that is not a good sign. Sadly, 58% of our country believes that the best days are behind us. Not good. And again, that could be split among Democrats, independents, and Republicans, right? Because Democrats see that Republicans are trying to take us backwards. They're trying to take us back to a time when abortions were illegal, when segregation was still in force, when we had no protections for the LGBTQ community, people's rights were under siege. But then you've also got the Republican side, who also thinks that Biden is out of control. It's, we're a communist country now and socialism, blah, 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 and all those other buzzwords. So doesn't break it down. They didn't break it down by party. Another poll focused solely on Gen Zers showed that we are deeply divided as a nation, and we're probably going to continue to split even further. 46% of college sophomores that were surveyed said that they would probably or definitely not room with someone who supported the opposing candidate in the 2020 election. The results show that there's more intolerance among left-leaning voters, among Democrats. 62% of Democrats and only 28% of Republicans held that view. This concerns me because how are we ever going to understand others, or how are they going to understand us if we can't even have conversations and we can't even get to know each other? Now, dating and especially marrying someone is a whole different story because you have to make financial decisions together. You have to make decisions about rearing your children, right? But just sharing a room with someone while you're in college, I think that's a bit extreme. And you just never know how a conversation could change a heart or mind. And they did the polling too on whether you would date someone with another political leaning or if you would marry someone. Again, I get that because we have very different ideas about the world. We have very different interests in the world and things that concern us and motivate us. So yeah, I get it. You don't want to date someone that you can't even have a civil conversation with. And you're constantly at odds, or especially marrying someone for the reasons I pointed out. But just getting to know someone, you never know. You never know if that person has maybe just been shielded from a lot of the information that you could share with them. You could impart some wisdom upon them, sharing a room with them that they had never heard before. So just something to think about, but I find it disturbing. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.